This time Tom gets to ride a BSA Rocket Gold Star. There are many classic bikes, but only a few ever regarded as truly iconic, truly desirable classics. BSA's Rocket Gold Star absolutely is one of these. But in many ways the RGS could be regarded as something of a parts bin special, coming as it did in 1962, right at the end of the production run for the A10s. The bike made use of Gold Star running gear, of course, fitted into a lightly modified Gold Star frame, into which was fitted the Super Rocket spec A10 650cc engine. And like the standard Super Rocket, it made use of just a single carburettor, but it would still kick out around 46 horsepower at 6,250 RPM, although this could be specced up to produce just north of 50 horsepower. The machine is best remembered in clubman spec, with its low bars and rear set foot pegs. The Rocket Gold Star boasted excellent handling and a top speed of around 110 miles an hour. But the machine was only ever intended to have a limited production run, and the advent of the unit construction A65s meant that production ended in mid-1963. The RGS is unquestionably an icon, and one I've always wanted to ride. But somehow, I didn't get to. Tom did. So Tom, obviously you're sitting on an A10 Gold Flash today, a fairly modest model, but you've been riding something a little bit more exciting recently.
I have an A10 Rocket Gold Star,
which is for a lot of people, and I include myself on that, a dream motorcycle. What about for you?
Yeah, it's definitely a dream motorcycle for me. It's a bike that's definitely grown on me, and I think it's like the pinnacle of Brit bikes, really.
Yeah, as a parallel twin, or single, just in general?
Just in general. I think if you speak to anyone the classic, like, British best of the best bikers, you know, I think a Rocket Gold Star springs to mind for most people.
Certainly about the looks. What do you think of the looks?
Oh, I think it's unarguably one of the most beautiful bikes ever made, really. I don't think you'll find a human being on earth who doesn't find it an attractive looking bike at the very least. But for me, I think it's just absolutely gorgeous. Everything about it. You know, BSA's like chrome work, I think, is pretty exceptional. Yeah, just faultless in terms of looks.
I think it's true that the bike, at that point I think, BSA was some of the best users of chrome, really. They made great use of it. They never went quite over the top, it was just tasteful and beautiful, really, wasn't it? Absolutely gorgeous machine. Any part of the styling that you think was controversial or you didn't like?
I guess one would be the single-sided exhaust. Personally, I think I prefer the single-sided. As I've seen people have done replicas with two exhausts, and I prefer the single-sided. I think it gives it a cool, sporty look, and it gives it a bit of a unique sound as well, compared to the twin exhaust, which I think is quite cool.
I love a bit of symmetry myself, so I disagree.
Yeah, you definitely disagree on that, but I definitely do like that single-sided bike.
What about, so talking about the exhaust, what about the sound coming out of the exhaust?
As to be expected with any British twin, it sounds pretty exceptional. It's just a gorgeous roar. When you're sitting on it, I don't know if anyone's watched any classic war movies. It sounds like you're sitting inside of a Dakota. It just sounds like a big radial engine underneath you, and it's such a tremendous noise. Like, it honestly does feel like you're sitting inside of a Dakota. It makes a lovely rumble, and when you open it up, it just has an instant like roar to it. It's a gorgeous sound, it really is.
So let's talk about the differences. There's quite a few differences between this bike and an RGS. The frames on, they look very similar, but of course they're not the same, and the frame on an RGS is lighter and more rigid. Could you tell the difference, do you think, on the road?
Not really, if I'm being honest. I couldn't tell the difference. I think unless you're a complete BSA geek, which I'm not, I don't think any normal person will be able to tell the difference between the frames. There's like, from my understanding, the bottom of the frame is slightly different visually, but apart from that, unless you look at the numbers on the side of the frame, you can't really tell.
I know visually, I think, 'cause obviously they use different materials and different
Mm.
manufacturing techniques to make the whole thing lighter and more rigid. But yeah, I agree. I mean, they're not hugely different, do they? But
No.
still, it's a great frame. I mean, the BSA frame generally is very good, isn't it?
Yeah, I think just in general, BSA frames are just fantastic frames. I think whatever BSA you get, they're really good frames. You'll be surprised at how easily they tip in. I think this has got pretty shocking tyres on it, but I think with a
True.
good set of tyres, you can push them surprisingly quickly. Not that you'd want to, but yeah, they really like to just tip in and follow corners.
Yeah. How did the RGS feel?
Well, it felt the same, and again, I have a preference to like the seating position of the RGS, and of course they're like slightly racer. It's not too aggressive, but a bit more rear than this, and then like inverted bars. So you're probably about this position, and I think similar to my V35 Imola in terms of seating position. I think it's a really nice seating position to, I guess, be quite stable, but corner quite quickly, and feel a part of the bike. Of course, there's nothing wrong with this seating position. It still handles perfectly fine. But I think if you want a nice, cool, like calf racer sporty feel without your back hurting after 10 miles, I think it's a really, really nice seating position.
Yeah, it didn't have Clubman clip-ons, did it, that one?
No, it didn't. I can't comment on the Clubman clip-on versions, but again, I can't imagine they're going to be, like horrible feeling, like a 916.
They
if you
look
jumped
pretty
on one
low,
of them.
actually.
They do look like, but again, I can't comment on them. But again, with the inverted bars, I think it gave a really nice feel to the bike.
One thing that worries some people is obviously, unlike the A10 standard model, is you've got a manual advanced retard. Did you find that made any difference?
I think once you know it, it's pretty easy. I've been on a few bikes of automated advanced retard. It's still learning which way's advanced, which way's retard. But once you know which side's which, I think it's pretty easy to get a hang of. You just push it towards towards the where the cable comes out of to start it, and then you pull it toward the other way when it gets warm.
Whichever the setup of particular like, yeah.
Which,
you advance the spark to start, really. Yeah.
Advance, yeah.
Works really nicely on very low hills if you do that as well. Which is handy because obviously the RGS has a close ratio gearbox, doesn't it? So first gear was tall. How did you find that? Coming on the Gold Star, it's really is popular because obviously a single doesn't have that flexibility.
Yeah, from hearing people speak about Gold Stars, I think it was better. I found it manageable, but it's still definitely not as nice pulling off. The city work in general is nowhere near as nice as the standard gearbox. Like same if it was me personally, if I had an RGS, I know it might sound blasphemous, but I would definitely want to change the gearbox to a standard one. I think the gearbox is a lot smoother on the standard. I found the RRT was a bit more clunky, and just the first gear maze, it didn't cause me to stall once, embarrassingly, which is rare to happen on the standard gearbox. But it's plenty of clutch slippage, and you can pull off fine. As I say, it's there's nothing particularly wrong with it, but you compare it to this gearbox, and it's really nowhere near as nice.
Yeah, I mean it's designed for a different purpose.
Yeah,
it's more of a competition gearbox, which is something you have to bear in mind, really.
Yeah, I'd say because I think it's another thing I'd say generally about BSAs. The gearboxes are so gorgeous, like. Even compared to a lot of the modern bikes we own, I think the BSA's got a better gearbox in my opinion. It might sound crazy. You'd think after 50 years they would have come up with far better gearboxes, but yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's so slick and smooth.
Yeah, it's just right, isn't it? I mean, it's a great gearbox in these, really.
If anything, I'd say getting into neutral is a pain, but a lot of bikes have that problem.
Suzuki's could be like that.
Yeah.
So talking about the transmission, what about the clutch?
I'd say the clutch on the RGS, I found a lot more snatchy than the RA10 we've got here. I think it's because, correct me if I'm wrong, this has got a Triumph clutch in it, and I'm assuming that was an original BSA clutch. Of course I didn't take the thing apart to check, but I found the clutch in that was a lot more snatchy. I'd be slipping the clutch, slowly letting off with like revs on, and suddenly just pull at the very end, just suddenly just grab. And then this, it's a lovely clutch, and as you said, we're pretty sure it's a Triumph clutch inside of it.
Yeah. So obviously BSA claimed 46 horsepower. I think spec can vary quite a bit with those bikes, and you never quite know what you're going to get because people obviously specify different parts from the factory. People have changed them a lot over the years. That one, I'd imagine it was pretty much standard type of spec, dynamically balanced to about 60 miles an hour.
Yeah.
How did you find that?
I found it's 60. I found it very, very smooth. About like A7 smoothness.
Which is
if you
very smooth.
You know, if you're sitting at 60, it's quite, you know, you barely get any vibes at all. You can grip the tank and it doesn't really vibe. But everywhere else, it vibes more than this A10 here, or of course an A7. Like the vibes are worse. It wasn't like way worse. It shake you to bits. But I think if you wanted to use the gearbox fully and race the thing, I think for most people, including me, it was quite vibey.
Would it put you off the vibes? Would it be a deal breaker?
No,
at that level?
No, it definitely wouldn't be a deal breaker. I think, as I said, the vibe's a bit worse than your traditional like kind of low compression 650. Because I believe in this, what's the compression in this?
Low.
Like, is it 7.5?
Something like that.
It's like 7.5, and I believe, if I'm correct, most of the standards RGS about 9.5 to 10 compression. There's quite a big difference in terms of like feeling the horsepower. You do notice they're a bit quicker, but it's not like you don't feel like, whoa my god, and the thing pulls away way more than the 10. It's not. I wouldn't say it's noticeably quicker than your standards.
There's quite a bit, isn't there? I mean, this is claiming 35 and claimed 46, I think.
Yeah.
So I mean, was it mostly the top end? Do you think? The mid-range, was it? Did you feel a fatter mid-range?
I think the mid-range is a bit fatter, but I think it's mostly, if I'm being honest, at the top end. But I didn't thrash the bike. It was a museum piece. I wasn't going to thrash it, and I think for the, sticking in top gear and open the throttle, it'll go up to 70, 75 quicker than this, but it wasn't blisteringly more quick. Yeah. So, and then saying about like the A7, which is an A7 SS, about 28.
28, 29 horsepower.
Yeah, 28, 29 horsepower, and it's again, that doesn't feel noticeably slower. So I think if people are chasing horsepower with old British bikes, they're probably looking at the wrong kind of bike, because it's not really noticeable unless you can bear with a lot of vibe at the top end, I think.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, it's true. I think at the end of the day, the A10s, the growth of those engines, even the Rocket Gold Star, only ran a single carb, so keeping them in balance and keeping them maintained is that bit easier than say a Triumph where you're running twin carbs. Single carbs generally the easy way to go if you're a lazy git like me.
Yeah, I think
there's less of a dark art trying to balance them.
I think single carbs got more advantages for like what people would be using Brit bikes for today, because from what I've read, they give you a better mid-range. Of course, your top end goes, but I don't know who's going to be using the top end on knocking on for an 80-year-old bike now. Really.
Yeah, I think if you're taking a 70-year-old bike out and you're thrashing it, you probably should just buy a different bike.
Yeah,
really. Yeah. I think you can ride a Spirit. We don't hang around in hours, but you shouldn't be hammering the guts out, thrashing the death. Something like that. It's just irresponsible, I think.
But yeah, I think if you go from if you're used to Japanese 4s and you go to a Brit bike, they'll feel vibey. Like when I first rode the BSA, it felt vibey to me because another thing when you're nervous and you're holding on tight, you feel the vibe more. But when I rode the AGS, I'd ridden the BSA a few times and I was quite comfortable with riding them, so I didn't really notice the vibe as much. And I think if you're planning to cruise around country roads at 55, 60, I think the RGS is a perfect bike. Well, any Brit bike is a perfect bike, really. I don't think there's any other bike or style of bike on earth that gives you the same satisfaction, really. One thing I would say, starting the RGS compared to this is a bit harder. I have to admit, my starting technique isn't the best. I'm not very good at starting old Brit bikes. I get them going, but I'm not very good at it. And I'd say I managed to get this started, but the RGS I definitely have to put a lot of thought into kicking it. It was you have to give it a good proper kick. I think if you're 5 foot tall and weigh nothing, you better work in your technique, because it's not the easiest thing to start. But that's another thing. I think sort of said, like an A7 would make quite a cool I think RGS replica if you're worried about the vibe, because A7s, as we've said previously in other videos, are really incredibly smooth for Brit bikes, and I think you can start them pretty easily, in my opinion. But like, I think most people with a bit of practice could start from first kick, and I think they'd make pretty cool RGS replicas.
Yeah, they would. Yeah, it's a much disregarded bike.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah. I'd say give your A7s more love, but
Yeah. So, two last questions then. So the RGS, obviously a lot more expensive than the standard A10.
Yeah.
Would you, if you had the money, spend the extra money on an RGS, or would you say a standard A10 is going to do the same job? What do you think?
I personally would say if you really want an RGS, because let's be honest, they're all collector's items. When's the last time anyone has seen an RGS on the road, other than the museum at Birmingham? I think you're far better off if you really want to get like an A10 like this and doing it up into an RGS if you want one, which is something into a replica, because you'd get the exact same feeling.
Close to, yeah.
Well, close to, near enough, and the same looks. And really, it's just if you're like me, you're just after the looks, because it's a gorgeous bike. I don't care about the serial number on the side.
No.
I just want it to feel the same and look the same, and
So
that's what I'd say.
they always say it's never good to meet your heroes. So for us, the RGS is one of our biking heroes.
Yeah.
Was it worth meeting it?
I definitely would say it was worth meeting. I didn't know what to expect. I thought it might be a lot more lumpy and not feel as nice. But it was honestly one of the most fun bikes. I would say the most fun bike I've ever ridden, hands down. The sound, the feel, the looks of it. You just feel cool riding it. It just feels cool.
It looks cool. I was very jealous.
Yeah, it's just a cool bike. You can't I don't think there's a better way to say it. It's just you feel cool on it. But yeah, I think that's the sad thing about RGSs now. They've become collector's items, so they're quite difficult to get a hold of. You're looking at like 20 grand from now, which I think it's ridiculous money. It's more than I'd ever spend on a bike, really.
Yeah, it certainly makes you think twice, doesn't it?
Yeah. And you don't even know if it's a proper RGS at the end of the day, unless you really know what you're looking for.
Yeah, you've got to be careful.
But yeah, I think you can see all the people buying Gold Stars, they can't start them anymore. So the Gold Star prices have come down and the RGS prices have gone up as people can't kick them over.
Yeah, because the twins are always easy to start. I think that's definitely the case.
But yeah, overall, I'd say it's a really good bike.
What other bikes or collections of bikes would you like to see us cover in a future video? Maybe you've got a bike we can use for a test ride? Either way, get in touch. Hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe, and of course, thank you very much for watching.